It all started with flashing blue and red lights reflecting off our front windows. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard the unmistakable sound of a police siren screeching to a stop right outside our house. My heart immediately skipped a beat. What on earth had happened? I ran to the window and peeked through the blinds, my stomach twisting in knots. That's when I saw two police officers stepping out of their cruiser and walking toward my 14-year-old son, Jaden. Jaden, who just moments ago had been skateboarding in our driveway. Let that sink in. Jaden wasn't vandalizing anything. He wasn't causing trouble. He wasn't even near anyone else's property. He was simply riding the brand new skateboard that his grandfather, my dad, had gifted him for his birthday just a week earlier. He had on his helmet, elbow pads, knee pads, and was riding slow and steady, just doing laps up and down the driveway. But someone had called the cops on him. And not just someone, it was her, Karen. Of course, her real name is Linda. But everyone in our neighborhood knows her as Karen because, well, she is a Karen. She's the self-appointed watchdog of our homeowners association, the kind of person who walks around with a clipboard pointing out violations like your trash can being visible from the street or your grass being a half-inch too long. She lives 3 houses down and she seems to believe the HOA rules are the law of the land and she's the sheriff. She has reported people for hosting birthday parties that were too loud, for parking their cars facing the wrong way, and once even tried to find a neighbor for hanging up Halloween decorations too early, but this time she had crossed a line. I rushed outside, ready to defend my son, but my dad, Jaden's grandfather, was already halfway down the driveway, and that's when things took a turn Karen never expected. Now, here's what you need to know about my dad. He's a calm, disciplined man with a quiet authority that instantly commands respect. He's a retired SWAT team leader who served 27 years in law enforcement. He's led hostage rescues, drug busts, high-risk entries, you name it. The man has nerves of steel and a mind like a chess master. He was sitting on a lawn chair at the edge of our driveway when the police showed up. He saw the flashing lights, stood up, and approached the officers with that calm, composed stride I've seen 1,000 times. "Good afternoon, officers," he said in his deep, steady voice. "Can I ask what this is about?" The officers gave him a once-over and immediately seemed to recognize him. Lieutenant Hale, one of them masked, eyes widening slightly. "That's right," my dad said. "Retired now, just spending time with my grandson, who, by the way, is that young man on the skateboard. What seems to be the issue?" The officers exchanged a glance, clearly feeling awkward. "We received a call from a resident reporting property damage and unsafe behavior by a juvenile. We didn't expect to find this." My dad raised an eyebrow. "What you found is a 14-year-old boy skateboarding on his own driveway under adult supervision with full safety gear. Is that what was reported?" The younger officer cleared his throat. "Well, ma'am said he was tearing up the street, scaring animals and vandalizing sidewalks." At that moment, Karen emerged from her fortress of a house, storming down the sidewalk, with a folder in one hand and her phone in the other. "There he is," she shrieked, pointing directly at Jaden. "That's the one. He's been racing up and down the street all morning. My cat is terrified. He's chipping the sidewalk. It's dangerous and against HOA policy." Jaden had frozen by then, skateboard under his arm, eyes wide. I walked over and gently placed a hand on his shoulder, assuring him silently that everything would be okay. Karen marched right up to the officers, trying to take control of the situation. "You need to do something. He shouldn't be allowed to do that. This is a quiet neighborhood. There are rules. I have it all written down right here." My dad didn't flinch. He turned to the officers and said, "There's been no damage, no disturbance, and I have personally been here monitoring my grandson the entire time. This is not a law enforcement issue. This is a neighbor trying to weaponize authority over a child." Karen scoffed. "Weaponize? Are you accusing me of?" "Yes." My dad said, "Cut her off. You called the police on a child because you don't like the sound of wheels on concrete. Do you know how many situations escalate because someone misuses emergency services? You are creating danger where there is none." The officers were trying to keep things professional, but it was clear they agreed. "Ma'am," the older officer said, turning to Karen, "we see no violation here. The child is not causing any damage and there's no threat to public safety. We won't be taking any further action." Karen's face turned bright red. "But the HOA rules are not enforceable by police," my dad said, and I happen to have read them. Nowhere does it say skateboarding is forbidden on personal property. If you believe the rules have been broken, you can take it up with the HOA board. But involving the police over this, that's crossing a line, she sputtered, looking around at the growing crowd of neighbors who had come out to see what the commotion was about. Most were shaking their heads in disbelief or muttering under their breath. And then icing on the cake, my dad added, if you continue to harass my grandson or misuse law enforcement resources, I'll have no problem filing a formal complaint. You may be used to scaring people, but that stops today. Karen stood frozen for a second. Then, realizing she had completely lost control of the narrative, she turned on her heel and stormed back to her house, slamming the door behind her. The officers apologized for the inconvenience and left. Our neighbors applauded, literally. One even brought my dad a fresh cup of coffee. Jaden, he looked like he had just seen Batman in real life. He turned to my dad and said, "Grandpa, that was awesome." My dad smiled, ruffled his hair, and said, "It's easy to look tough when you're right and calm. Remember that." Word spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. By the end of the weekend, almost everyone had heard about how Karen tried to get a kid arrested for skateboarding and how she got shut down by a retired SWAT commander. Over the next few weeks, we noticed a change. Karen still peeked through her blinds, still took her daily walks with that clipboard, but she was quieter, less confrontational. Some of the other parents in the neighborhood felt more confident, letting their kids play outside. A few even bought skateboards of their own. Jaden became a bit of a local hero among the kids. They started calling our driveway the safe zone. And my dad made it a tradition to set up his lawn chair every Saturday morning, sipping coffee while watching the kids play. And he didn't just watch. Sometimes he helped the younger ones learn how to balance, how to turn, how to stop without falling. It became a sort of weekend skate club with Grandpa Hale as the unofficial coach and guardian. We learned a lot from that day. We learned that fear spreads fast, but so does courage. We learned that you don't have to raise your voice to be powerful. And most importantly, we learned that standing up for what's right doesn't always mean starting a fight. It means ending the nonsense. So if you've got a Karen in your life, someone who thinks they can intimidate you with rules and threats, remember this. Stay calm, know your rights, and don't back down. Bullies rely on people being too afraid to push back. And if you're lucky, you'll have someone like my dad in your corner. Someone who won't just teach you how to ride a skateboard, but how to stand tall. Thanks for listening to our story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more real-life stories.